Então, muito boa noite a todos. Estamos começando mais uma live do Grupo Identificados aqui no canal João Marcelo. Hoje quem estará aqui liderando os trabalhos sou eu, Rudar, e eu quero agradecer essa oportunidade, muito legal, muito obrigado. Bom, hoje nós teremos nossa primeira live internacional, né, com um convidado muito especial. Mas antes, vamos apresentar a nossa bancada. Né? Hoje nós temos aqui conosco Laura Elias, o Marco Aurélio, o doutor Marco Seixas e o professor Dino Nascimento. Não podemos deixar de agradecer, claro, quem está por trás das câmeras hoje, né? O João Marcelo, né? A Ariane, o Marcão e o Giordano, que estão sempre nos ajudando em tudo que nós fazemos aqui. Então é sempre importante a gente deixar bem claro isso. O nosso convidado de hoje, especialíssimo, é o senhor Mick West. O Mick ele trabalhou durante muitos anos como programador de videogames. Ele é um dos autores dos famosos Tony Hawk e Guitar Hero. Ele é o criador dos sites também Contrail Science e Metabunk. E ele investiga e desmascara alegações pseudocientíficas e teorias da conspiração, né, como chemtrails e UFOs. O seu livro, Escaping the Rabbit Hole, How to Debunk Conspiracy Theories Using Facts, Logic and Respect, que para nós seria Saindo da Toca do Coelho, como desbancar as teorias da conspiração usando fatos, lógica e respeito. Ele tornou-se uma referência para os pesquisadores de diversas áreas do conhecimento que precisam lidar com as teorias conspiratórias em suas atividades. O seu trabalho, explicando ali os vídeos do Pentágono, ele tornou-se bastante famoso no mundo inteiro e gerou muitas reações, né? O Mick já foi entrevistado por várias redes famosas, como a CNN, BBC, CBS, e participa constantemente de debates com pilotos aí, militares e ufólogos. Então, Mick, welcome to our channel. We are very happy that you accepted our invitation, and it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Okay. So please, if you could give your opening message and explain how you started to study conspiracy theories, please.
Sure. My name is Mick West, and I'm actually a retired video game programmer. And I think a lot of what I do now goes back to when I was a video game programmer, because I do a lot of 3D mathematics, a lot of analysis of video, and a lot of things that relate to my work back then. Like I think of debunking, which is what I do, as being like debugging in computer games. When you write a computer program, you often have to find out what is wrong with it. And I think a lot of what I do now is the same type of thing. I find out what is wrong with a video. Say if something comes along and they show me a video of a UFO, and they say, this is a UFO because of this and this, then I have to figure out, is this correct? Is this correct? And then work from there. So I've been doing that for a few years, and recently I've been investigating the videos that were released by the U.S. government. They were actually U.S. Navy videos. They weren't really released by the U.S. government. They were leaked out by other people, but they are official videos that were actually taken by military people. So I've been investigating those, and I really enjoy doing it, and I enjoy talking about it. So let's go.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, so now let's start with the questions. And the first one to do it is Laura. Laura,
Hello,
please.
Mickey. Good night. Thank you for being here with us. And what I'd like to know is how your interest in theories, conspiracy theories, led you to the UFO subject. Was it natural or you look for it?
Well, it's a combination of things. When I was young, I was very interested in UFOs, but not for very long. It was something that was interesting to me for a few years when I was young. And then I got into reading more science fiction and things like that. And then I got interested in real science as well as science fiction. And I think my UFO interest didn't last very long when I was young. But later in life, I started investigating other things. I started investigating conspiracy theories. And one of the conspiracy theories that I investigate is called chemtrails, which are these trails that come behind airplanes that some people think are being sprayed by the government, and they think that they are like some kind of poison being sprayed or something to alter the climate. So I was very interested in that. And while I was doing that, one of the things I had to do a lot was actually try to identify the planes, because people would say, this is a government spraying plane. So I would look up the plane online and then explain what it was. And I got very good at tracking down the plane. So you get a picture and you find out what time is it, what is the location, and what direction are they pointing in on the compass. And then you can work out what the plane is and the altitude as well. And that just kind of naturally led to me being able to investigate UFOs. And there was a fairly famous case in Chile, I believe in 2016 or 2017. And the Chilean Navy had this sighting of a UFO. And I was able to use my skills at tracking down planes to show that it was just a plane. It wasn't actually a UFO. But they had spent 2 years trying to sort it out. So after that, I just got more and more interested in it and got to use my skills at tracking down planes. And I enjoy the puzzle of doing it. I enjoy just figuring it out. And that's what happened.
Nice, very good. Now, Seixas, please.
Okay. Mr. West, allow me to go straight forward to the one aspect of the Pentagon videos. Once these images from the Pentagon, mostly from the Navy, were leaked, people began to hear uncommon words like glare, lens flare, convolution filter, compression artifacts, relative speed, bulky, etc. Words that no man has ever heard before, maybe perhaps Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock. And these reviews came largely from ordinary people like you. So I ask you, why then did the technicians of the U.S. Department of Defense, certainly extremely capable people, do not came out in public to demystify this whole panacea, this whole confusion around these objects? This would certainly, how can I say, facilitate our work, our understanding.
Yes. Yes, that's a question that people ask me a lot. They say, why have you figured it out, but the Pentagon cannot figure it out? And I think the answer is that we don't know what the Pentagon has figured out. The videos were not leaked. They were not released by the Pentagon. They didn't say these are unsolved mysteries. They said these are videos of things that at the time were described as unidentified, meaning they couldn't identify them at the time. And to some degree, they're not identified now. And I think that just means they don't know which plane it was, if it was a plane or whatever it was. And sometimes they might not be identified entirely. But I don't know if they've done the same analysis that I have, and they are not going to tell us. Excuse me, they are not going to tell us. And they've told us that they will not tell us because of the secrecy that we have here in the United States with the military. If something is recorded with a system that is classified, that is top secret, like the cameras and like the radars that we have, then if they do an investigation into what was recorded, they can't actually tell us what the result is, because their investigation becomes classified just because they are using some kind of classified technology. And they explained this. They've explained this several times. The spokesman and the spokeswomen of the Navy have said that the results of any investigation will not be made public because it relates to classified information. So I think it's possible that they don't know exactly what the things are, but I don't know exactly what the things are. When I say something is a glare, it's probably the glare from a jet engine, but I don't know that 100%. And if it is a jet engine, I don't know which jet engine. I don't know what plane it was. It could be a commercial plane. It could be a military plane. We don't know that. And that would be something that they could investigate and then not tell us. It would be great if they did say, yes, Mick, you were right. And we can all agree. And it would be good if they could share the results of their investigation. But they don't have any motivation to do that. They don't really care that much about the UFO community, and they don't care that a bunch of people are interested. So they just automatically, by default, will keep things secret just because there's no reason for them not to. And that's the way things will probably remain.
Okay.
An everlasting mystery, you mean?
Yeah, it will probably be a mystery for quite a long time. These things, they are classified for a period of years, and they have to go through a process to get declassified. It might be that all the public interest will result in some of the things being declassified, but I just don't think it's a big priority for the military. They've got more important things to do than declassify UFO investigations, unless it becomes part of some kind of investigation by Congress, then it probably won't come out.
Okay. Now is Dino. Please, your answer. Your question.
Hi, Mike. Thank you for meet you. Excuse me my poor English. Thank you for responsibly your time. My question may seem a little strange, but from strictly side from a point of view. Okay. Then play. Do you think that so-called Greek ufologists, specialists in classes, case such Renshaw, Roswell, among others, contribute to credulous public continuing to believe in absurdities, even without presenting a single proof or coherence for that claim? What do you think about it?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite understand your question. Perhaps you could repeat it, or someone else could repeat it?
Yeah. What do you think about the Greek ufologists playing contribute to credulous public continuing to believe in absurdities, even without presenting a single proof or coherence offered to claim.
Yeah, I think I still couldn't quite follow that, but I think you're asking like about if people are believing things without proof.
Yeah.
Yes, I think our friend Dino is asking you if how can those great famous ufologists,
Those famous ufologists,
monopolize the attention of so many people without offering a shred of evidence.
Right.
That's what he's asking you.
Okay. Yes. Well, I think that they think that there is evidence, and I think a lot of people who are famous in the UFO community, they have personally been convinced for a number of reasons, and one of the reasons is for a lot of them, they talk to a lot of people. They talk to a lot of people who have had some kind of encounter or some kind of experience.
Experience.
Yes, and I think that if you talk to a lot of people, you eventually start to believe them. And I think with people like, for example, Jacques Vallée. Yeah, Jacques Vallée is a famous investigator of UFOs, and he has talked to a lot of people who have had some kind of experience, that they think they have had some kind of experience. And Jacques Vallée, his default position, his normal position that he takes all the time, is that he believes that the person had a genuine experience. And he's trusting them. He's trusting that they are telling the truth, which is reasonable. The people, something happened to them. They felt something. Perhaps it was just an illusion or a dream or something, or they were fooled by something. But something happened, so you trust that they experienced something. But after a while, he speaks to so many of them, he starts to think, oh, there must be something going on here. And I think we've seen this with other famous ufologists, like J. Allen Hynek. He started out as a skeptic. He was working with the government, investigating UFOs and trying to explain them. And he interviewed a lot of people. And because he interviewed a lot of people and he heard lots and lots of stories, it starts to seem that there are so many stories, there must be something to it. But unfortunately, this is an illusion. Just because a lot of people are telling you something, it doesn't mean that they are all correct. A lot of people will report ghosts. It doesn't mean that ghosts actually exist. A lot of people will report having an encounter with an angel, or a lot of people will report seeing some kind of demon in their bedroom. Perhaps not as many as UFOs, but certainly many people have had experiences like that because they have these things like nightmares, night terrors, sleep paralysis, things like that, things that can explain it. But because it seems like there's so many of them, they become convinced. And then they see there are all these videos, and they think that is just more evidence, one thing upon another. And it becomes, for them, the weight of evidence is so much that they think there must be something going on. But if you take each individual piece of evidence, each little brick in the foundation, and look at that one brick, that individual piece of evidence, there's not really a lot there. And so even though there's a lot of bricks, each individual brick, if you look at it, will crumble away. So it looks like there's a lot, but it's just a heap. It's not a very strong foundation to build an argument on. But I think once someone gets into the mindset that they think that they have all the evidence, they kind of flip. They start thinking, now we've settled the matter. We know that UFOs are real. We know that UFOs are some kind of alien visitors. And they start looking at everything from that perspective. We know that UFOs are aliens, so what is this video? How is it aliens? What were the aliens doing with this person? Why were the aliens abducting these people? Why are aliens cutting up cows? And they're looking at it all as if it's already been answered, and they're just looking at the details. And I think it's kind of a mindset problem that people get stuck into, and it becomes very difficult to get them out of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mick. Now, Marco Aurelio, please, your question.
Mick West, thank you very much for the honor for you to be with us, because we are like a rookie debunkers, because you're going to need your teachings here. Let me start with your book, which
Thank you. Yes.
I start reading, The Escaping from the Rabbit Hole.
I have it here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty good, by the way. It's going to be our Bible.
Oh.
But I don't believe in Bible, but it's going to be our Bible, a kind of handbook for us. because we need to know the rules in order to debunk with respect, with logic, like you said. So let me ask you something here before you're going to the point. When I started, something called my attention when I read about the James Randi, this famous professional skeptic, and he prefers to be called as a scientific investigator. On the other hand, you prefer to be called as a debunker. Mm-hmm. So why is that? By the way, tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, my book is about how to talk to friends and family and other loved ones who have got stuck in some kind of conspiracy rabbit hole, as we call it. And these could be people who believe in some kind of pseudoscience or believe in something like the government is covering up UFOs. This is really a conspiracy theory. It's difficult to believe in UFOs without actually believing that there is some kind of conspiracy of the government.
Right.
But a lot of the other conspiracy theories I talk about are more extreme than that. They are perhaps stranger in some ways. People believe that the Earth is flat. This is something that some people actually seem to believe. And some people believe more mundane and more simple things, like the government is covering up something to do with the vaccine, with coronavirus,
right.
or simple corruption. So there's all these different levels of conspiracy. And some of them are mundane and some of them are complicated. But they're all related. If someone starts looking into UFOs and then they start believing in UFOs and they start feeling that the government is covering up UFOs, then they start distrusting everything that the government is putting out, and they start distrusting newspapers and the media. And it can lead to them believing in other conspiracy theories. So I feel it's important to try to help people get out of whatever different type of rabbit hole they are in, even if it's something as silly as flat Earth, or something like something that's relatively harmless, like UFOs. You might think of UFOs, it's just kind of fun. It's fun looking up at the sky and thinking, could that be an alien spaceship? And it's fun investigating these videos. But it can also be harmful, I think, if people get stuck in this mindset that everything is a conspiracy and the government is covering everything up. Then they start believing more extreme conspiracy theories, like the chemtrails conspiracy theory, or other theories like that school shootings are fake. Like when someone goes in and shoots a lot of people, some people in America think that it was staged, that it was all actors just playing roles. So my book is about how you actually talk to people, and I think the important thing there is to do it with respect and to be polite. Right. And you have to understand, you have to understand where the other person is coming from, what's going on in their head. And it's very easy to start out thinking that, this is a crazy person and we should just, tell them their ideas are crazy and even laugh at them. But if you do that, if you start out by telling them how stupid they are, say, your ideas are ridiculous, you lose them because the conversation comes to an end very quickly. They become angry at you, and you get frustrated at them. And so the book kind of explains how to get around that. And it starts by listening to them, asking them questions to explain why they believe the things that they believe. Why did they start to believe it? Why do they continue to believe it? What particular things do they think are most important? And then you have to get two-way conversation. You have to get it so that they understand you. So then you have to explain yourself, and you explain why you believe what you believe. And then you try to find where is the common ground? Where are things that we both agree on? Now, we can both agree things like many politicians are corrupt. Many politicians are corrupt to some degree. They take campaign contributions. People give them money with an expectation that they will vote favorably on certain legislation, which is kind of like a very, very simple conspiracy theory, which is probably true. And so you start out agreeing on something and then try to find out where is the closest thing to that where you disagree. And so you move from a position of agreeing to a similar position, but where you disagree. And then you figure out why. Why do you disagree on this thing? And then if you can figure out why they disagree, you can identify areas of information where you can help them by giving them answers and information that they might not be familiar with. And then in the book, after I kind of lay out these methods, I talk about the individual conspiracy theories like the chemtrails, the flat Earth, 9/11 conspiracies, and these false flag conspiracy theories, and just general bits of information on how to help people in those. Interestingly, though, I don't have anything in the book about UFOs. At the time of writing, I wasn't as interested in UFOs as I am now. And if I was to write another book, I would definitely
a new section.
Yes, perhaps quite a large section, I think, because I have done a lot of UFO investigation. And then there's also new issues that have come along, like QAnon, and the idea of election fraud, that the election was stolen from Donald Trump in America. And so these are ideas that I would add to the book now, but definitely I would do a lot more about UFOs. But your question was about why I prefer debunker and why James Randi prefers investigator. Yes. Yeah, why? And I think it's because when I started out doing this, the things I was looking at were, I think, what I would describe as obviously wrong. And you start out essentially knowing that something is wrong. Like if someone says the Earth is flat, do I go out and do I investigate, is the Earth flat? I don't need to do the investigation because it has been done thousands of times before, and we have the proof and the evidence that the Earth is not flat. So I'm not really an investigator of that theory. I'm someone who is explaining why it is not, why their claims are false, and demonstrating why their claims are false. So I'm debunking because it has already been investigated and shown to be wrong. The debunking has already been done. And similarly with other things that are perhaps less obviously wrong, but like the chemtrails conspiracy theory. When someone makes a claim that they say the trails behind a plane should vanish quickly, then I already know that is wrong, and so my challenge is how to explain it. So I'm debunking it, something that I know is already wrong. So where it becomes an issue is when we get to claims where we don't know whether they are true or false, or videos or photographs where we don't know what they are. So if someone sends me a video, do I then say, oh, I'm going to debunk that video? Now that means that I'm automatically saying that this video is false, and I don't think that's a very good position to take. So I wouldn't say that I set out to debunk something now, if it's a UFO especially. I would say I'm going to investigate it, and if it shows something, then I'm going to explain what it shows. If somebody claimed something, somebody said, this object is spinning around at the speed of light, or whatever, and I can show that is wrong, then that is debunking. That is showing a claim somebody has made is false. But yes, what I do actually really is investigating when it comes to UFOs.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
to make.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Seychelles,
Excuse me.
please.
Let me make a comment. We used to say here on our group that prior to study the extraterrestrial mind, the extraterrestrial agenda, we have to study the human mind, the mental health. And then I came across with a phrase from the writer H.P. Lovecraft. He says that the strongest and oldest of emotions is fear. And the strongest and oldest of fears is fear of the unknown. We know by neuroscience that the brain doesn't like uncertainties and fear. He struggles to eliminate this thing, and he spends energy with that. Do you think, Mr. West, that people are afraid of not knowing what crosses our skies, what invades our bedrooms, and so still clinging to a baseless theory? That's because we see a lot of conspiracy theories. It's a mental health issue.
Yeah. I don't know that they are afraid of it, but I think they don't like it. It doesn't feel good if you don't know why something is happening. And there's this term cognitive dissonance. It's like it doesn't feel right in your head, like your brain. You can't make sense of something, and you want to have an explanation for it. But of course, with UFOs, you could just simply say the explanation is planes and birds and balloons, and then you can be happy because you have an explanation. But with UFOs, people are looking for a much more complicated explanation. You could turn that argument around. You could say that people who are debunking UFOs are afraid. People tell me that the reason I investigate UFOs and the reason I debunk these videos is that I am afraid of UFOs. I was scared of them as a child, and now that they say that that is why I investigate it. So you can use the same argument, and I don't think it's true either way. I don't really think people are afraid of the unknown. I think they are cautious of it and they don't like it. But if you think of evolution, and this is something that there's a writer, Michael Shermer, who talks about this in one of his books. I think why people believe weird things. If you hear a noise in the bushes, do you run away from it, or do you go and investigate it? Now, if you run away from it, nothing will happen. If you go and investigate it, you might get eaten by a wolf, or you might discover something. The best thing to do is usually to run away from it, is to not investigate. And so people, it's healthier for people to assume that something mysterious that they don't know is actually dangerous. It makes more sense for the brain to be afraid of the unknown than it does for them to assume that it is safe and go and look into it. So I think that's perhaps why some people might imagine that UFOs are aliens from another world, is because assuming the most extreme example is something that nature has primed us to do. If you assume that something in the bushes is a wolf or a tiger, that's the most extreme example, when it's probably nothing. If you see something in the sky, that gets turned around and people think, oh, it must be aliens from another world, when it's probably nothing.
But by the way, I even wrote about this issue, this part you're saying about the bushes in my article. In our we have a blog. It's written in English as well.
Right. Okay.
And we this is the way the superstition starts. When a deer, for example, see the bushes moving and a lion close to it runs. The animal runs. afraid of the deer. When the lion is not anymore close to the bushes, but the bushes shake, it's going to believe that all the time the bush shake, the lion will be close. That's the way the superstitions start.
Yes,
I think that's your point.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that once somebody believes something, they stay believing it, and it's hard for them to shake that belief because they have no motivation to test it. It's like once you start believing that there is a lion in the bushes, you are not going to investigate those bushes every time they shake. Yes, because you're now stuck. I don't know if that applies exactly to the UFOs, but it's a very interesting way of looking at how people think about these things. And it's true, we do have to try to understand why people believe in things like this. But we also have to approach that subject with respect. I think it's very easy to...
And logic,
Yes, we can say, people believe in UFOs because their brains are tricking them, or because they have fallen for these old illusions. But when you talk to someone who believes in UFOs and you tell them that, it sounds like you are saying you are crazy because you believe in UFOs. So you have to be very careful when you use an argument like that, and you perhaps start out by explaining how it applies to you personally, with a personal example of where something similar happened to you. But yes, you do have to be careful, and that's the type of thing I talk about in my book. You have to tread lightly when you're talking about people's minds, because it's very easy for them to think that you think they are crazy when
you are evil, and he thinks you are evil because you're contesting him.
Yes, and they won't listen to you if they think that you are saying that they are crazy.
Yes, right. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura, make your question, please.
Let me tell you something, Mickey. 2 months ago, I did a workshop, 2 days workshop about fake news and denial, negationism. And the guy that was teaching us is a PhD psychologist. And he was using your book as reference. And the same examples you have in the book, I heard in the workshop. So to me, personally, it's a great honor talk to you now and ask you directly what I really want to know. When you choose this path of conspiracy theory, because you choose it, you say you choose it for the circumstances, I don't know, and you choose it. Why? What was in your heart? What was in your mind? You said, I want to help people, I want to save people, or I just want to shadow a light, bring a light to this difficult subject, this strange subject. What you have in your heart and in your mind that you keep doing this for years and years?
Well, it has changed over time. When I started doing it, it was a combination of things. I think I read things on the internet that I saw were wrong, and it made me a little angry, and I wanted to correct them. So somebody posted something about chemtrails on Wikipedia, and then I wanted to explain why it was wrong, and I wanted to fix Wikipedia because there were things on it that were wrong. So in a way, it was just seeing things that were wrong and just trying to fix things here and there. Then I got more and more interested in the science of it, and I started enjoying the research that I had to do and the puzzles that I had to solve, sometimes mathematical puzzles, sometimes puzzles of science and things, chemistry even, and physics. I enjoyed doing that. It was kind of fun brain exercise, and then I enjoyed writing. I enjoyed writing articles. So at first it was just because I liked doing it. I liked the process. I liked the individual things, the research, the explaining and things like that. But then over the years, and this was just me doing it as a hobby, I recognized that it was important to help people, and people would tell me that they used to believe in something. They previously believed in a conspiracy theory, like the chemtrails conspiracy theory, and then they had seen one of my videos or they've read something that I had written, and now they were not. And I'd helped that person, and I changed their lives, and they were a lot better off mentally because of that now. And that made me realize that what I was doing was useful and important to people. And so I started thinking about how to do it better. And that is what essentially led to the book eventually, because I wanted to figure out the techniques that work well and help more people. And then I got into conspiracy theories that perhaps I might not have been interested in before, like election fraud, because and the anti-vaccination things that they're perhaps a little tedious to look at because there's lots of mathematics and statistics, and I wasn't that interested in them. But I do them because I think they are important topics that need explaining. So it started out just fun, and it still is when I'm looking at things like UFOs. But I think it's useful to society, and it's important to for individual people, and I can help individual people, and I'm just happy to be able to help people.
Very beautiful.
Thank you so much, and good luck for your work, and well done work.
One more question, very rapidly. Which conspiracy theory most impressed you? For example, I mean, the one which still lacks of plausible explanation. Do you have some or more, many, or not? Not so far.
Well, not really, because the conspiracy theories that I look into tend to be ones that are a bit more extreme, like things like chemtrails or UFO cover-ups. Now, all conspiracy theories, though, they're on a spectrum. They're one end there is simple conspiracies, and then at the other end there's much more complicated ones. And so you can say this end of the spectrum is not very likely to be true, but right at the lowest end of that spectrum, there may be some truth around there, and it becomes difficult to debunk. If you look at, say, the 9/11 conspiracy theories, like the attacks of 9/11 on the World Trade Center, there's very extreme conspiracy theories where people say that there were explosives in the building, or that there were laser beams from space destroying the building, or there was a nuclear bomb underneath the building. And these are things that are fairly easy to debunk. But then there's other conspiracy theories like President Bush knew something about the attacks, and you can't debunk that because you don't know exactly what went on. So there's always going to be some conspiracy, some aspects of each conspiracy theory which might possibly be true. It might be true that the government has some evidence that of possible visiting aliens. It doesn't seem very likely, but it's possible, and you can't debunk it. You can't say, we know that the government has no evidence. So there's always going to be something in every conspiracy that is impossible to debunk because we don't have access to the information.
It's a hard task to devote a life to debunk conspiracy theories, Mr. West, because all the people interested and the majority of people interested in the UFO phenomenon are hardly dissuaded of their beliefs by all the evidence to the contrary.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think that I ask myself if all the evidence to the contrary is not entirely dissuasive.
Well, it's a problem because you only need one UFO to prove that UFOs are real.
Yeah.
It's like the black swan. You know, all the swans that we see here in North America and in Europe are white. I don't know what they are in South America, but there are some black swans in Australia. But until you see that one black swan, you either assume that there are no black swans, or you think, oh, there's just one black swan. We just need to find the one black swan. And the UFO people, they've seen something in the distance that they thought was a black swan, and they've become convinced that black swans exist, and maybe they do. We can't prove that UFOs are not visiting aliens, or we can't prove that they're not some kind of advanced technology anti-gravity craft. Because it's impossible to disprove, you can't prove a universal absence. You can't prove that there are no visiting aliens ever. Then it always leaves open that possibility. There's always a possibility, and they just hold on to that possibility. And so you can't prove to them that it isn't true. You can prove that, say, even if you prove Roswell was just a weather balloon or a scientific balloon, you could prove that the gimbal video is just a rotating glare. You could prove the Nimitz encounter with David Fravor was just a test drone or something like that. You could prove all that, and there will still be the possibility, and there will still be other cases where there's a lack of information, a low information zone where it's possible that it was aliens. And so you're never going to prove to someone who is hoping that it's true that it is not true.
Great. Laura, you have another?
Mickey, in 2004, there was a case in Mexico involving the Mexican Air Force. I don't know if you are
yes, I'm familiar with it.
And here in Brazil, I was the person who wrote about this case. And I said it was reflections of the Cantarell Towers, the plant of the Cantarell Towers, the oil station of Cantarell,
yes,
in the Gulf of Mexico. Did you have the opportunity to study this case? Because I was not very much received, very well received.
Yes, no, I have looked at this. Yeah, I've looked at it, and I agree with you. And I think a number of other people have looked at it also. I was just on a TV show. I'm not sure if it's been broadcast yet, but it's called, I think it's called The Proof Is Out There. And we looked at this case, and I did a reconstruction of it using Google Earth, where I put in little towers where the oil platforms were, and then I put some clouds at the coastline, and where the plane, I can't remember if it was a plane or a helicopter, I think it was a helicopter, is about as far away from the coastline as the oil platforms are out to sea. So you get this issue of parallax, where two things are moving, but because one is further away, the position changes between the two things from your point of view. And so what we're seeing in the video you're talking about, you see the clouds at the coast, which are, I think, 30 kilometers away or something like that. Let's say 50 kilometers. And then the oil platform's at 100 kilometers, and the plane is moving that way. So that makes it look like the platforms are moving past the clouds. And it's very difficult for people to to understand this motion. It's something that tricks people all the time. There is a new video that came out recently called the rubber duck video, which basically just looks like something moving very fast, but really it turns out it's probably just balloons. And this is what I was using this balloon for, to demonstrate some aspects of that. If a plane is flying around a balloon, the parallax makes it look like it's moving very fast. And if it's the other way around, if it's flying past some clouds and there's some lights in the distance, it makes it look like those lights are moving very fast. And there's lots of examples of this. I think people have become very invested in this particular case, and so it's difficult to dissuade them. It's very difficult to explain to people who have a very strong belief that they are wrong. But I agree with you. I think it matches very, very well. We know the oil platforms were there, and we know the distances, and we know the motion of the plane because we have the coordinates. So it all works.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Anyone have another question? Seixas?
Yes, I was going to ask you about exactly the rubber duck video that you made an analysis. At the end of this video, you asked, "Is it interesting?" And I think that the only interesting aspect of this video and other videos recently released, particularly the Pentagon videos, is the analysis made in order to demystify, to debunk the ever-present extraterrestrial hypothesis. So I return you the question, Mr. Wallace. In your opinion, is there any UFO video that you find interesting?
The problem with all UFO videos is that they are very low information, and they are naturally difficult to identify. They remain unidentified because there's not enough information in the video to do very much with them. So no, I don't think there are any UFO videos that are interesting. There are some videos that have interesting aspects, and I think if I was to pick one, I would pick the gimbal video because it has this very interesting rotating shape, which I think is just glare. I always demonstrate it with a flashlight. This is what glare looks like. But we don't know the exact configuration, the exact trigonometry, the exact physics, the exact optics. What's going on with the camera, what's rotating, what actually causes the shape of the glare, and what was this craft? Was it even a craft? If you do the math and try to figure out the lines of sight, they could be nearly parallel. This could be something that was very, very far away. People are saying that it could have been a rocket. It could have been, I can't remember the name of the rocket, but there was actually a rocket that was being launched at that time, and it could have been that, but hundreds of miles away. Some people said it could have been Venus. I think that's unlikely, but we know what we see. It's not interesting in that it's not demonstrating that it's anti-gravity. It's not interesting in that it's probably aliens, but it is interesting in that it's a bit of a mystery as to what it actually is. We can demonstrate that it's less interesting than people claim it is, but it's still somewhat interesting.
Laura, do you have any questions?
Me again. There is an very old conspiracy theory inside the UFO subject that tells us that in the 50s, the President Eisenhower had met with extraterrestrials in California, Edward Base, I suppose. I don't remember the name of the base, the Air Force Base. What do you think? How reliable and how can we say to people that this is not true.
Well,
What argument we can use?
How fake it is.
yes.
You know?
Yeah, I think with cases like that, you have to look at what is the evidence. And sometimes people start thinking these old stories are true because they are old stories. But that is essentially all they are. Or perhaps there is like a forged document or something like that. But if you get people to look at why do you believe this is true, that can be quite helpful. Especially if you can demonstrate that it's not true. But if you can simply show that there's very little evidence for something, that can be useful in giving people perspective. So they think, why do I believe in this thing? But yeah, I obviously I don't think that Eisenhower met with aliens, and I don't think there's really any significant evidence. I think it's probably not even a very widely held belief. But like I said, things are on a spectrum. So it's about here on the spectrum, and there's going to be some people who believe it. And if that's the most extreme thing they believe, then it can be a good thing to talk about. If it's something that you could shift them a little bit on that one thing, it can be good to talk about. So yeah, I mean, it's something that might be useful to look into if somebody really believes it.
There is many people who believe this encounter had happened, and that was an agreement with the U.S. government and the extraterrestrial to abduct people and to make experience with them. And I know this is why I'm asking you, how can we help people see that it's an absurd, this is not true?
Yes, well, I think you have to, if you can't look at the evidence directly, you try to look at what is the big picture. If Eisenhower met with aliens in the 50s, what does that mean for current government policy? How does that work with everything that has happened over the last 70 years? And does it make any sense that he would have met with aliens in the 50s, and then we did all the things that we did afterwards? But that's perhaps a slippery slope or a dangerous road, because they might say, yes, it makes perfect sense. They helped us with the space race. They invented transistors, and they can come up with all this evidence, but it isn't really evidence. So you could then say, well, suppose he hadn't met with aliens. Is it possible that we would have done all these things if they hadn't met? And of course it is possible. So all the things that happened afterwards really aren't evidence for that. But yes, I agree with you. It's a bit of a challenge. It's a difficult one. If someone believes it, it's almost like a religious belief. It's like trying to persuade somebody that Jesus doesn't exist. It can be very, very difficult. Because if you believe something and you have believed it for a very long time, it's a challenge.
Okay. Thank you.
I've seen this video, this interview of Lex Friedman with Dave Frainer. I saw your statements. What do you think about this? About did David Frainer contested you live, or did he accept your invitation to talk to him after this video? Not yet?
He never talked to me, and I don't know if he will. I did talk to the other pilot, Alex Dietrich, and she was very pleasant. But I have not talked to David Fravor. It's very interesting that Alex Dietrich has a different recollection of what happened to David Fravor. Like, David Fravor describes a 5-minute encounter, and Alex Dietrich describes a 10-second encounter. So you've got 5 minutes versus 10 seconds. It's very, very different recollection of what actually happened. So I think that kind of indicates perhaps Fravor's recollection isn't perfect, but perhaps Dietrich's recollection wasn't perfect. But I stand by everything I said, and the criticism that I have of his statements, and the criticism of what they talked about with Lex Fridman, and I don't think he's really addressed it. He's just kind of brushed it aside, but he hasn't really given a satisfactory explanation.
Right. Thank you.
When you made the analysis of the gimbal video, if I'm not wrong, one of the pilots says it's rotating. But according to your analysis, the object is not rotating. And I wonder, where was the pilot looking? To the object itself or to the aircraft screen, the radar screen? That's why I think that it seems to me that it's an absolute incompatibility between the Commander David Fravor sighting and your hard analysis of the screen data. In other words, debate between you two would be unproductive, don't you think?
Well, with the gimbal video and with the other videos, all of the pilots would not have seen the object because it would have been too small. The field of view of that camera is 0.75 degrees, less than 1 degree, which is a very, very narrow field of view. That's equivalent to about a 2,000 millimeter zoom, very long lens. On a 35 millimeter camera, and they, in some instances, they were in 2 times magnification as well on top of that. So it was even smaller field of view. So it would have been literally a tiny speck in the distance if they could see it at all. So they wouldn't have been able to see if it was rotating. You can't see what orientation something is if it just looks like a tiny speck, like a little white speck far away. So when they say it's rotating, I think they must have been just looking at the screen. But Fravor didn't have video. He didn't actually have a targeting pod on his plane. So whatever he saw with the naked eye. So that must have been a different situation, and you can't really compare the two things.
Okay. Thank you.
One last one.
Okay.
Why those footages are so bad? They are blurred, and you have cell phones, very modern. Why is that?
It's because if they weren't blurred, you would be able to identify them. All UFOs live in what I call the low information zone, which is essentially the distance away at which you can't tell what they are. They're UFOs because they're too far away. I call them TFA, too far away. And if they were closer, they wouldn't be UFOs. They would be birds or balloons, or they would be planes, or they would be drones. If you had a better camera, they wouldn't be UFOs. They're only UFOs because they are too far away.
Right. That's why they are.
So all the footage is bad. Yeah, that we have blurry footage because if it wasn't blurry, it wouldn't be a UFO.
Right. Someday they will be. Who knows?
Hopefully. It would be fun if there was. There's a Professor Avi Loeb who is doing this project where he's trying to set up giant telescopes to search for UFOs. I think all that's going to happen with that is that it will take pictures of things that are too far away for the giant telescope. The UFO seems to know how good your camera is, and it just stays just a little bit too far away
all the time
to take a photograph.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Rudar, our master of ceremony, you want to say something?
Yeah. Let's go to our last question, Mick. This one asked by João Marcelo. Mr. McWest, today you do the work of checking and verify alleged UFO videos, okay? Why doesn't ufology do the same? Why does ufology present things before first checking their authenticity?
Well, I think there's two aspects to that. First of all, they do do these things. And they have done for a long time. I have a book here. Just 1 second. Okay, this book here is called the UFO Handbook, and it's by Alan Hendry with a foreword by J. Allen Hynek, and it's a guide to investigating and reporting UFOs, and it's a very good book, and it contains lots of useful information about how to distinguish UFOs from IFOs, identified flying objects, and most people who are serious in the UFO community will also be people who try to find out what these sightings actually are. I think the difference is that they're a little bit more hopeful and a little bit more accepting of limited evidence in deciding that something is a UFO. It's genuinely unidentified. And to a certain degree, not everyone has the same skill set. Not everyone is as good at tracking things down or identifying videos or finding the plane or recognizing things as everyone else. So even though some people try, they fall short and they don't manage it. So it's a combination of factors. A lot of the time they are trying, and a lot of them do a lot of very good work, and some of them will debunk the same things that I debunk, and a lot of the time they will agree with me. There was the case of the green triangle, the green pyramid that came out earlier this year, and a lot of the people agreed with me that it was just bokeh, and a lot of people agree with me that the rubber duck is just a balloon, but then they disagree with me on something else. So I think they generally, the genuine UFO investigators, they mean well and they do try to investigate things, but perhaps they are a little bit too open-minded.
Thank you, Mick.
Can I?
Go on.
Yeah.
Mickey, we are a group of people that try to do what you do. We try to not really debunk, but to explain people what things are. So we talk about old cases that already had been explained, and we try to show people that things have an explanation, a logical explanation. So to us, it's so important you are here because you have much more experience than us. We are new in this way. We are only 9 people here. You see 6, but we are 9 people. We do our best to enlighten, to explain, and to save people from not very honest ones. So
that's great.
Thank you very much. I'm really, really honored.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, just like I said, Mick West will be our mentor because we are like him, like truth hunters. That's why what we are. And so your book will be our handbook from now on. You better believe
thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for the conversation. I enjoyed being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. West. And I'd like to take this opportunity to invite you to chat with us in the near future. If you...
Okay, yes.
Okay, it was very productive and very enlightening for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mick.
All right. Well, thank you. I have to go now, but thank you for the great conversation and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
See you.
Bom, foi muito legal a live. Acredito que todo mundo conseguiu aproveitar bastante das explicações do Mick West. Acho que todas as perguntas ficaram foram muito bem feitas e muito bem respondidas, né? Eu acho que isso é muito, muito legal. Ele é uma pessoa que me parece bem disposto, né? E explica muito bem, né? Falou do livro dele, foi bem legal. Nós vamos passar agora para as nossas considerações finais, agora já em português. Vamos passar primeiro, então, para a Laura Elias. Por favor, Laura, faça suas considerações.
Bom, primeiro ele, que é uma simpatia, uma pessoa super acessível, que aceitou conversar com a gente, um bando de desconhecido, que ele não sabe quem é, de onde veio, para onde vai, e mesmo assim, e com toda a fama que ele tem, ele mesmo assim se dispôs a conversar conosco. Então, assim, uma pessoa muito bacana. Segundo, tanto que a gente aprendeu com ele, né? Porque ele sabe muito, e ele faz isso há muitos anos. Essa coisa de debancar, de explicar as teorias, por que elas não são verdadeiras, como que você lida com isso, né? E ele tem um conhecimento técnico imenso para analisar vídeos e imagens que nós aqui não temos, né? E como ele tem muita experiência, nós aprendemos muito com ele. Eu adorei, achei fantástico, achei rica, uma live muito rica, com muita informação, e que foi assim mais produtiva até do que a gente esperava, porque nós esperávamos ter menos tempo, né, para menos perguntas, e no final deu para fazer até mais perguntas do que a gente tinha planejado. Eu adorei, por mim, que venha a próxima. Eu agradeço muito a oportunidade, eu agradeço ao Mickey, a você, o Dar, que foi assim, um host fantástico, e ao Dino, ao Seixas, ao Veado, que estiveram aqui juntos, nós dividimos essa live, e ao pessoal que vai assistir também, muito obrigada por estarem assistindo. Eu tenho certeza que vocês vão gostar, que vocês já gostaram, né? Nós estamos no final, que vocês gostaram muito, porque assim, a riqueza de informação que ele passou é para a gente realmente abrir tudo isso e pensar e estudar durante muito tempo. Então, muito obrigada por tudo, gente. Boa noite, bom descanso. Fiquem bem.
Legal, Laura. Obrigado. Opa, tá, ok. Vamos agora para as considerações finais aí. Vamos, Marco Seixas, pode ser você?
Bom, primeiramente agradecer o Mick West por ter aceitado gentilmente o convite. É uma pessoa extremamente agradável, extremamente educada. Um dos principais especialistas que a mídia procura quando o assunto é teorias da conspiração. A sociedade precisa de mais pessoas como ele, né? Infelizmente, o meio ufológico ele tá infestado de teóricos da conspiração, teóricos do absurdo, de malucos guiando doidos. Então, a gente precisa de mais pessoas que tratem do assunto com seriedade, com objetividade e principalmente com simplicidade. Tá? Dito isso, eu queria agradecer a todos que acompanharam essa entrevista. A participação de vocês é muito importante. Agradecer ao Xará Marco Aurélio, ao Dino, à Laura. Meus parabéns para você, Rudá, que conduziu essa entrevista com mão firme, e ao João Marcelo e à Ariane, que estão aí nos bastidores, dando suporte. Graças a vocês, isso daqui ficou possível. Então, um grande abraço, muito obrigado, e até a próxima live.
Valeu, obrigado, Marco. Vamos lá para Marco Aurélio, fazer a dobradinha. Por favor.
A Laura e o Xará já disseram o que eu penso. Foi excelente essa aprendizagem, né? Nós, através das perguntas, nós aprendemos também com as respostas que ele deu. E como eu disse para ele vai se tornar uma espécie de um mentor para a gente, porque, afinal, isso daqui foi um debut nosso, né? Como debunkers, né? Sem trocadilho. E eu acho que esse é o começo de uma longa jornada que a gente tem. No final das contas, a gente está se ajudando e ajudando as pessoas a não se deixarem levar por qualquer notícia, qualquer fato que elas pensam que é verdade, mas de repente não é, então pode prejudicá-las ou não. Mas a nossa missão é essa. E graças ao Mick West, consultor da educação, cara muito fino, gentil. E o mentor ideal é esse, né? É um cara simples que sabe transmitir a sua mensagem com respeito e acima de tudo. É isso daí. Parabéns a todos que tiveram a paciência e eu tenho certeza que todos aprenderam como a gente. Boa noite para todo mundo.
Perfeito, Marco. Muito legal. Dino, por favor, faça a sua vez.
Bom, primeiramente agradecer ao Mike West pela disponibilidade dele de falar com a gente. Espero que o pessoal que esteja nos assistindo, nos acompanhando, tenha tido um pouco mais de uma visão diferente, né? E que faça a gente, como nós pedimos sempre, pensar um pouco mais sobre a ufologia, né? É uma pessoa muito dedicada, muito educada, foi muito gentil da parte dele e você vê que a tranquilidade dele falar, de ele comentar, de ele expor, ele entender o que a gente está perguntando, né? A minha dificuldade na linguagem foi inclusive foi um pouco truncada, até a minha internet aqui hoje não estava lá aquelas coisas, mas a educação dele deixa a gente assim extasiado com toda a propriedade que ele tem que falar. Agradecer também a você, Rudar, né, por estar mediando, ao GM, né, ao João, a Ariane, pessoal que está aí por trás, aí, que não apareceu, mas eu sei que estavam presentes, ao Doc, Marcos Seixas, ao meu grande amigo Dear, Marco Aurélio, a minha amiga Laura, né? Saudações a todos. Agradeço a participação. Espero que o pessoal que esteja assistindo a gente tenha bastante proveito do que foi comentado, porque vocês viram que ele é uma pessoa extremamente assim tranquila, ele não está querendo colocar palavras na boca de ninguém. O que a gente perguntou, ele explicou de uma forma coerente, né? Que não deixa ninguém assim, nossa, será que não? Não, o que a ufologia tem que ser? Uma coisa coerente, séria, levado de uma forma não completamente assim aleatória, né? De acreditar que tudo é ufologia, tudo é disco voador, tudo é extraterrestre. Muito genial, espero que vocês tenham um grande ganho com o que nós estamos apresentando para vocês. Enfim, um grande abraço a todos, obrigado pela turma. Eu acho que nós ganhamos um grande ponto, nós estamos contribuindo para um repensar sobre a ufologia, né? De uma forma coerente, precisa, os pés no chão e sem grandes voadas aí. Pessoal, boa noite a todos, obrigado e desculpe o meu prolongar aí. Abraço, obrigado.
Muito legal, Dino. Eu também quero agradecer, principalmente a oportunidade de estar aqui diante, né? Puxando o carro aqui. Agradeço a compreensão de vocês, o carinho de todos. Também achei o mix sensacional. Acho que a apresentação dele, tudo que ele falou, a forma como falou, foi muito legal, ajudou bastante. E como nós falamos aqui, nós estamos passo a passo tentando fazer esse mesmo trabalho, né? De tentar esclarecer, antes de mais nada, eu acho que é esclarecer as coisas para as pessoas, né? Então, muito obrigado a todos que assistiram e que irão assistir ainda. Obrigado a todos que estão aqui conosco e aqueles que estão por trás das câmeras também, que estão sempre fazendo. Deixa eu ver se o GM está aqui por perto para a gente gravar e chamar, né? Fazer uma... GM, Ari, venham aqui. Venham aqui na frente da câmera. Olha aí, ó. Sim, gravado. Vem cá.
Aí sim, agora
aqui,
sim.
Agora
tá completo.
Aí,
Agora tá completo.
agradecer a todos, né?
Foi ótimo, obrigada.
É isso aí, pessoal. Então, boa noite a todos.
Agora sim, o identificado está quase completo.
Quase. Faltam alguns, mas eu tenho certeza que estão presentes de qualquer forma. Beleza? Boa noite a todos e até a próxima live. Um abraço.
Até.
Tchau, tchau.